It being 5:30, we'll call to order the meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Public Works for January 3rd, 2022. I will note we have a full quorum with everyone, Kim Lobdell attending via Zoom, Michael Granetsky is here, along with Alder Wheeler, Dave Wilborn, myself, Director of Public Works, Bill Balke, and Scott running the AV. Our first public appearances for non-agenda items, we have none. So we'll move to item 3, approval of minutes from the December 6th meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
I so move we approve the December 6th meeting.
Moved by Wilborn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. Discussion.
Just, I have one minor comment when I read through, I think it was right at the very end of it where it said seconded, the meeting closure was seconded, but there was an extra ED or something else, I thought, on something. I don't have it up in front of me right this minute.
Okay, motion to adjourn made by Wheeler, seconded. Is it I think that's right, isn't it? Seconded?
Okay, well, maybe it's somewhere else, that's fine, it wasn't a big deal anyway.
It probably is in there, I missed it. Seconded. I'm not seeing it. Anyone else see it?
No.
Okay. If you come across it, we can come back, Kim.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So we'll call the vote. All in favor of approving the December 6, 2021 Board of Public Works minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have approval, or report from Department Head, Mr. Director of Public Works, Mr. Bill Balke.
Good evening, Happy New Year. Glad to be here again. So glad to see you all made it through the holidays. Our department pretty much, we were trying to catch up on vacations and things like that. It was pretty quiet through the December month, and then the snow and the rain hit, and we've been pretty busy since. So we've been out plowing and salting a few times. Snow was kind of a challenge. The first one that we had was so wet that just made some big snowmen out there, and unfortunately they just rolled into driveways, and there's not much we can do about that. It just rolls up and finds the biggest opening and ends up there. But we did help some people out with the massive snowballs that happened out there. You know, we were able to break some of those up and help them out on some occasions, but it's just one of those things, the way the weather rolled in. Coming up this month, we're looking at getting a few contracts out for some capital projects we have. One was for the lift replacement that we have for the garage. We've been waiting on that for about 1.5 years now. We finally got the budget for that for our vehicle hoist, the lift there. And then our salt shed is another project that we're going to start working on, getting some contracts out for that so that we can get that repaired this year in preparation for next year. Other than that, we're just here to serve, ready to go.
Questions for Bill?
I have one question. Last time we were here, we had talked about a couple RFPs for stormwater projects. Are those still going, Bill, or what's the status of those?
Yes, we have 3 projects that we received bids for, or actually one is still out for bid. We received 3 proposals for one, 3 for another one. Those still are in my box to review, so I'm going through those, reviewing those to make a recommendation. I'll try to get those out by the end of January so that we can get started on those for the year. But we do, they are available for our updates.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think those will come in the second meeting in January, or will it be later?
I'm hoping to get those in by the second meeting in January. I've got a lot of things to read through, so.
Anyone else have anything for Bill? I have a couple things.
No, not I.
All right. First, do you have any status update? I don't know if you've spoken to the city attorney about our the rainwater, on properties, our ordinance our ordinance that we drafted, so that it doesn't divert the stormwater on someone else's property.
Yeah, I found one that I think we can use as a model. I just have to write that one up and get it to her for review,
Okay.
so.
I would hope we could get that before spring. I've been putting the measles off for a long time, and they've been very patient. They haven't been at my house with pitchforks and torches yet, but I think they're getting close. I know your plate is full, but make a note for that for yourself. The second, I had a question. A resident came, and I think it was, he lives on Chesapeake Drive by my house, and we did a chip seal there, I think, this fall. Does that sound, ring a bell? Or a slurry seal, chip
Sure.
seal, I think.
Yep.
And he seemed to indicate plows coming down the street, they're knocking the rocks out of there right and left, you know, and then they're in the bottom of his driveway. He's concerned about his snow blower, and I said, you know, I don't have I don't know anything about this, you know, I'll have to ask you. Do you have a sense? Is it typical? You know, it seemed like within a week, the rocks are pretty well embedded, but again, you know, when you got a 20,000-pound truck with the blade, do they have a certain down pressure? Like I say, I'm just trying to respond to them. I hate to have us spend the money on that maintenance, and then our trucks knock them all off.
Right.
Any sense of that at all?
Well, there will be, a certain amount of rocks that do come off with the plowing, and we anticipate that. So they do put down, a good amount so that it's actually the oil that we're trying to get down to seal the road up.
Okay.
And then the remaining aggregate provides the traction. So, that coming off, we're not too concerned with that. That it's spread out enough that it's there for the traction.
Okay, thank you. I'll just let him know he should be careful with his snow plow. I think even though they're small stones, I think they could get in there. Second, let me see, I have a note here. Oh, so this is one I've been corresponding with you. We had a resident who lives over in Seminole Hills, and his request was similar to one you saw from Patrick Cheney, where he asked for us to put an aerator in a stormwater pond because he had mosquitoes in his yard. And Bill, do you want to give the background, why we can't do that?
Sure. When we design our stormwater ponds, we design them so that they have a sufficient depth to accumulate sediment through them. So the water comes in dirty, and then the water comes across the pond, and then it settles out as it makes its way across the pond. And when you put in an aerator, it stirs the water up, and it doesn't allow that to settle out, so the dirty water just keeps on going downstream, and that's not what you really want it to do. That's not the impact that you want to have for the ponds. So the DNR said in order for us to be able to do that, you have to increase the size of the ponds to account for a larger area to settle out, or they just flat out pretty much tell you we don't want to have those around. So that's one of the reasons that we don't put fountains and aerators in the ponds, is that it just doesn't function to clean the water up. So as I had mentioned, we do design those ponds with about a 5-foot depth in the deep part, but they do taper up right to the surface. So there's a flatter part in there, and that's where people are saying that the mosquitoes are living, or depositing their eggs and things like that. And what you really want to do there is have the area clear of vegetation, so that it doesn't allow a habitat for mosquitoes to come in and live. There's a lot of different things that we could possibly do with that area. We can put in a prairie vegetation that sustains dragonflies. Dragonflies love mosquitoes. So you see a dragonfly around, that's a good thing. And the more you have, the better they are mosquito control. There's also some birds that like to come in and feast on those little guys too. And we've heard about bats, but the bats are in decline in this area, and they're hard to attract. You have to find a good habitat for them to want to come into and colonize. And it's hard to get them to come in and do that. So those are some ideas that we've had, kind of kicking around that we're going to look at for some of these ponds. We're also looking at those areas where there's shallow ponding. So we'll do an inspection out there and around the ponds to see if there's any areas that, have water that collects, if there's any erosion or, something that would, hold water out there. And then, like I said, the vegetation, we want to, put something in there sustainable that promotes, things that like to eat little bugs, and not upset them. So those are some ideas that we bounced off Dave and the neighborhood there that we're going to probably go forward with this spring.
At first when it happened, I thought, I was going to tell him, go ahead, put an aerator in there and run it yourself. I don't, but obviously we couldn't. Bill straightened me out right away on that. So this is, what I asked Bill is, and maybe Claudia, come up with maybe a little toolbox. These are our options, because I don't think this is, we're in January, we're talking about mosquitoes. I'm sorry, it seems a little odd, but I don't think it's the last time we're going to be dealing with this issue now. This resident, he's near Dunn's Marsh. There's woods there. I have no water within miles of my house, and I still have a lot of mosquitoes in the backyard. So even if we got all the mosquitoes out of that pond, I think where he lives, he'd still have some issues. But we're not going to neglect. We're see if we can do something there. Michael, did you have a comment?
Yeah, Bill, for neighborhoods that have their own kind of retention areas that are maintained by, let's say, a homeowners association, not necessarily by the city, is there any sort of reference material that's out there on how to best take care of those?
Yeah, I can forward those to you if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. And if we could, as those become maybe more prevalent as we start newer communities in the area, if we had some sort of posting on the city website and then some sort of referral site that we can kind of point to, that'd be great.
Thank you, Michael. Anything else for?
I have my yard sprayed for mosquitoes. And I don't get bit, and I don't have any on my deck. And if you want to spend a few dollars to have peace and quiet from the bugs, do that.
I'm not going to advocate that. I would do it in my own, but I can't advocate that.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying.
Natural area that the city has.
Yeah.
Again, the people would be at the house with pitchforks.
Get you again?
All right, moving on. Review items, review of the monthly utility P card purchases and checks. Does anyone have questions for Bill? Anyone? I've got a couple if you guys don't have any. All right, on the first page here, it's a small thing, but it's, let's see what item is. It's about 3/4 of the way down on the first page. Ice for DNR sample. And, am I reading that right? What would they need the ice for the sample?
When we go out and we collect water samples in the community, we're required to have them at a certain temperature in order to maintain their stability.
Very good, thank you. That's educated me there. And then a couple more when we get into the check register. First page there for the muskrat removals from the sod farm pond. Are they just trapping them out of there, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And one near the bottom, valve line replacement, Chesapeake and Petersburg. Was that a valve for just going into one house, or was that?
No, that was a main line valve that it corroded at the joints, and it needed to be replaced.
Did it bubble up through the street, or people losing water pressure? How'd you know, Bill? Or how'd they know?
It was coming up through the street, but it wasn't coming up in a spot that it actually was. So it was about a half a block away that they had to chase it down. And it was just by chance that we were digging next to it that we found the real problem.
I don't know how I didn't see that. I walk by there twice a day. I walk on the street twice a day, I missed it. And the last one on that page, it has CO2 assistance with history of stormwater utility, give me is that carbon dioxide assistance, or what is this?
No, it's change order two.
Okay, that's what I thought.
We had, we put this in the contract with AECom, Rick Robertson, the previous environmental engineer. We consult with him from time to time on history, and he gave us a good few hours of information regarding the utility.
Very good. Thank you. Sorry for my ignorance. All right, no other questions. We'll move on to agenda item 6. Resolution R 224-21, purchasing 2 Bobcat toolcats. Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Gronetsky. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Wheeler. Discussion. Bill, can you give us I know, but for the people listening, what are these primarily used for?
Sure. Back in 2012, we purchased a Toolcat, which is a 4-wheel vehicle that you can apply multi-attachments to. So you can apply, a snow blower, a broom, a plow, anything that you can put on a Bobcat, you can put on these Toolcats. And we use these a lot in our parks for maintenance, hauling things around, pushing things around, sweeping, snow plowing. We also use them with our water utility as well, to do some plowing around, small areas and things like that. And over the years, we've gotten, a lot of paths that we go out and we maintain. We've got a lot of parks that we've accumulated, over the years. So we've been using it more and more. And sometimes there's a waiting list to use it. So I think we've reached the point now that, buying the second one is beneficial for us to be able to get more work done. And we did have it in the budget to do this, to replace the one from 2012 as well as a new one for 2022. So we're looking to purchase 2 of those this year, and we do have the budget available from it. We are going to supplement that from the sale of our existing Toolcat, and hopefully it comes in at a higher sales price than we're anticipating, so that we can get all the attachments that we want. We want to buy a V-plow and a snow plow as a minimum, and if the budget allows for, we would like to buy a landscape rake for the parks. All total, we're looking at $141,000 with the contingency in there if we have it. If not, we'll just delay the landscape rake for another purchase in another year.
So if we get enough on a trade-in, you'll have money for the landscape rake.
Correct.
I'm not familiar with that piece of apparatus what does that do, a landscape rake? Is it for, is it just, it's not for raking leaves, I take it?
No. It's a rake that you use for the ball diamonds to smooth things out. I assume that's what it is.
Yep, okay, makes sense. Any questions for Bill? Michael?
Yeah, on these sorts of things, where we've got a new one and then an additional one, and then we're trading in an old one, and I know now is maybe not necessarily the time, but can you give us some insight as to what the decision is for when we keep an existing one that might be a little bit older versus get 2 new ones and then trade in the old one?
Sure. We take a look at the maintenance history that we've been having on it and how often we're making repairs and what we're making the repairs on. When we start spending more money on repairs every year, $4,000 to $5,000, 10% of the vehicle cost, and then we're running into some issues that we need to start looking at replacement. But this one's run its life 10 years. It's showing its wear, so we got a lot of use out of it.
Okay.
Bill, do you remember, probably do off the top of your head, approximately how many miles of park trails and sidewalks and paths is the Parks Department plowing?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but we do have it available.
19 miles? Does that ring a bell?
It's about that. It's in our city budget. There's a number in there that we use for our metrics. I think it's around 16 to 19 miles.
So you're not, please tell me you're not asking for an additional person to be operating this.
No, we actually did hire the person in the previous year.
Okay.
budget.
Any other questions?
So I have a quick,
Go ahead, Fred.
I have a question. So do the attachments that we currently have fit on the new one as compared to the old one? By not buying this landscape rake and things like that, are they all compatible?
Yes, they're all interchangeable. We just need the new equipment for the new Bobcat that we're getting so that we can do twice the work, so.
Okay. So I have another question. When I'm reading this, the background on this, you're talking about the cost. And then it says, the budget includes $65,000 for the toolkit, 49,000, whatever, plus 8,000 for the trade for the replacement toolkit. Why are you adding that number in for the replacement, for the trade for the replacement? I don't understand that.
We just add that in as part of our budget funding, that we anticipate a certain amount from the sale to be allocated toward this, so that we don't
Okay.
have to borrow the full amount or to
And
spend
so
the full
you,
amount.
you added 8,000 in, but you think you might be able to get 13 or something like that instead?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Call the vote. All in favor of Resolution R 224-21, purchasing two Bobcat Tomcats, toolcats, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Announcements. Our next Board of Public Works meeting is Monday, January 17th. Is there anyone that knows they won't be able to make that? Excuse me, sir, it's Martin Luther King Day. Oh, then, thank you, Scott. So we're probably not going to meet on that day. So,
What's going on that day?
Martin Luther King Day.
Oh, okay.
So you probably.
Is the
won't-
city closed on that day?
Yeah, I think so, I believe so. So, we probably, would I be correct, Bill? We probably don't have enough for next week to have on the second meeting?
Correct.
Okay. So, can we move, do we want to move to the 24th, or do you want to skip the second meeting in January? I'll let you get back to us. on that.
I know right now that we need to have the meeting on the 24th in order to get some council items approved for the end of the month.
Thank you, Scott. All right. So our next Board of Public Works meeting is Monday, January 24th. So with that, we'll move to agenda item 8, adjournments. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Moved by Wheeler. Do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
Second by Wilburn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned.